No, good morning, Cheryl DiGirolamo, your New England region president for RRC and CRS. And I'm very happy today to invite Jim Lee to our Mastermind Monday series for the membership spotlight. So let me tell you a little bit about Jim that you may have seen in our newsletter that went out, but Jim sold real estate in Knoxville, Tennessee area for a number of years before moving to Portsmouth, New Hampshire. In Knoxville, Jim was very active in his local, state, and national association of realtors and continues to serve in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. He was past president of the Knoxville Area Association of Realtors and past Realtor of the Year in Knoxville. He's even served 3 years on the board of directors at the National Association of Realtors level. Since moving up to Portsmouth in 2010 with his wife and partner, Ann Cummings, he has formed a very successful partnership to serve both buyers and sellers in the New Hampshire, Seacoast, and Southern Maine areas. In 2017, Jim was chosen Realtor of the Year by the Seacoast Board of Realtors, and later that year also chosen as the 2017 New Hampshire State Realtor of the Year. He is president-elect for the State Association this year, and next year he'll be the incoming state president. So very nice resume, Jim, and a good referral partner, and that's why you're here. So beyond all of that volunteer work that he's been doing, he is a certified residential specialist, accredited buyer representative, graduate of the Realtor Institute, GRI, Internet Certified Professional, which is the ePro status. He's completed the C2EX, Commitment to Excellence, and he's also completed At Home with Diversity. So I bring you Jim Lee to say a few words and tell us about yourself that I haven't already covered, Jim.
Well, good afternoon. It's nice to be here with all of you. So like many of our fellow realtors, real estate hasn't always been my career. After I got out of school, I enlisted in the United States Air Force and served a term there. And then after I was discharged, I got into the restaurant business for a number of years and managed several restaurants in Knoxville. Ended up owning a couple with my family, and I'm a chef and a restaurant owner, and I was in management for a number of years too. And I got my real estate license in 1980, and kind of a funny little story. I told all my friends I was selling to restaurants and getting into real estate, and they said, "Oh man, real estate, Jim, you got to work nights and weekends doing that." I'm like, "Hello, what do you think I'm doing now?" And I've never had a dishwasher walk out, and I end up mopping the floor at 1 o'clock in the morning in real estate. So compared to the restaurant business, this is kind of a walk in the park. So, I've been a realtor for 40 years now, and I got certified by NAR as a realtor emeritus this year, which was kind of interesting. And then I also am a CRS emeritus too. So I guess I'm a double emeritus, whatever that means.
And how many years do you have to put in to get an emeritus award? Is it 40 years or?
It's 40 years plus now they changed the rules slightly. You have to also have served on a national committee in some capacity as a member or whatever. So my 3 years as a director at large in Knoxville qualified me for that, plus what I'm doing in New Hampshire right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for your service. Were you active in Portsmouth Air Force Base when you were?
No, I've never. Ann's dad, actually, that's how she came to be here. Her dad was stationed at Pease, which was an Air Force base then. It's closed down now, and it's an office park manufacturing area. But my little stint in the Air Force all took place in Florida in the late 60s, in a little tiny base in the Panhandle called Hurlburt Field, where the Special Air Warfare Center and the Air Commandos operate out of. I wasn't one of them. I gassed up the airplanes.
That's great. Well, still, we thank you for your service. So how long have you been in the industry entirely? Is it 40?
40 years, since 1980.
Awesome. And what have you learned from your work, and what's one thing you wish you had known when you began your career that you could share?
Well, it's very satisfying. I love helping people, and I guess one of the things I wish I'd known at the start of my career was how easy and how profitable it was to buy houses for investment. Back in that era, you could assume an FHA or a VA mortgage without even having to qualify. You just had to fill out the paperwork and come to some arrangement with the owners, but what kind of equity they had. And a couple of guys in Knoxville ended up making a fortune doing that. by just taking over mortgages and then reselling the houses with a second mortgage on top of them. And so it was more profitable than I realized at the time.
Very cool. So I know I see Nelson Zides on the line too, and he does a lot with VA as well. He's got a good connection with that. So I think it's still a great program.
Oh yeah, excellent.
So what do you do to impact your clients and your sphere of influence and your referral partners?
What do I do to, okay.
I noticed you had a pivot this year, like a lot of us, and I noticed you had a virtual home buying and home selling.
Yeah, this COVID thing has got, I think, got everybody kind of in a tailspin. So one of the things we had to learn how to do was how to sell houses without being there, or sell houses without the buyers being there. So we do a lot of Facebook Live open houses and Zoom open houses. And when early on, Maine was extremely restrictive in what you could do there. You couldn't even take the buyer to the house initially. You had to go do a Zoom call with them and kind of walk through the house and wearing masks and gloves and booties and, you know, the whole deal to show them the house. And then they had to like it enough from the Zoom thing to want to make an appointment to come back later in person. So thankfully that didn't last very long, and it's kind of semi back to what normal is now. You know, you can get by with just wearing a mask, and at some places they ask you to wear gloves or booties or that sort of thing. But you know, it's back to whatever the new normal is now for the time being.
What's the like perfect referral for you? Like, what do you find the buyers are looking for in your marketplace?
Perfect referral. Well, I think a perfect referral for us would be a seller right now because we have so few houses for sale. I think right now in Portsmouth, which is a town of about 22,000, not a big town, but there's about 33 listings, active listings, and a third of them are over $1 million. So there's really not a lot of low end stuff here unless you get out into some of the, and everybody wants to live on the, you know, we want to live by the ocean and we want to be able to walk to the beach and all that. And unfortunately, New Hampshire has the shortest coastline of any ocean facing state. It's only 17 miles from Portsmouth to Seabrook, which adjoins Massachusetts. So we really don't have a lot of ocean front for people to move on to, and the prices are off the charts there. I mean, you couldn't get on the ocean around here for less than $1 million, and that'd be like a inexpensive house or a condo.
Oh, it's awesome. I know before we went live, we were talking about what you've been able to do in Portsmouth to allow adding on to a house for different reasons. Can you go over that with everybody?
Sure. We, working through the State Real Estate Association, wrote, and with one of our legislative partners, got a law passed in Portsmouth called the Accessory Dwelling Unit Law, or ADU. A lot of states are doing that now, but what that does is it gives a homeowner the right to build onto their house an accessory dwelling of up to 750 square feet, no matter what zoning that you're in. So the benefit to the homeowner there is if you're getting a little older and don't want to move to an more or less a cheaper place, you can build like a little apartment on your house and rent it to someone for income. Or if you have an older relative that you don't want to end up in the nursing home, which apparently is not a real good place to be these days, you can install them in there. If you have an older child or whatever, if you just need some rental income. The only caveat on the accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, is the owner of the property has got to live in one of the units. So you can move into the smaller unit and rent the larger one, or vice versa, as long as you occupy one of them. So it's been very well received, and a lot of people are actually building onto their house. You don't have to actually build on either. You can, take part of the existing house and turn it into the accessory dwelling unit. Like if you have maybe a 2-car garage, you could finish that off, or if you want to section off part of the basement and call that an accessory dwelling unit and put a kitchen down there and an extra bathroom, you can do that also. So it's been a great thing.
And they don't have to be family members, I think we
do
said.
not have to be family members. Nope. Again, the only requirement is the owner of the property has to occupy one of the units. You can't move out and rent both of them.
That's awesome. And you told me too that you're a major investor with RPAC.
I am, yeah. I think RPAC is probably one of the best deals the National Association of Realtors does for us, and the local and the state and local as well, because, I mean, real estate revolves around laws and regulations, and RPAC gets us a seat at the table where we have some influence on what goes on. And, it's very apolitical. So it really doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or whatever, it serves everybody. So, real estate's all about real estate. So that's what our focus is, keeping real estate more affordable and easy to buy for people so they can, own a home of their own.
I'm in agreement 100%. Also a major investor.
Thank you.
What's the biggest surprise you've had in the last few months and why?
Well, I guess COVID was the biggest surprise. I think that was probably everybody's biggest surprise. And one of the ways we kind of pivoted our business to try to deal with that is we went back to our webmasters, and they built us a virtual home selling system, which we have on our website, and also a virtual home buying system. So now we can interview or talk with sellers, remotely through a Zoom call or a Facebook Live call, and not have to actually go to their house to meet with them, and then email them the market analysis. And we can pretty much do everything except make pictures of the house remotely. And then in terms of showings, we can also show the house to buyers remotely, because a lot of sellers now don't really want a big bunch of strangers tromping through their house, no matter if they're wearing masks or whatever. They just don't want that. So if you can show the house remotely via a Zoom call or a virtual tour or whatever, and get some expression of interest before they ever set foot in the house, then sellers are a little more open to letting what they perceive as a more motivated buyer actually come to the house physically and look at it. Then a lot of people actually buy houses without even seeing them. We've sold several where we've done the Zoom call and showed the house to a buyer remotely, and they made an offer remotely, and sent the funds, and we sent the closing, or the title company sent the closing paperwork to wherever they are, and they buy the house, and they don't actually see it till they come to get the keys and move in. So that's been kind of interesting.
That's incredible. Do you find a lot of people coming up from Connecticut and Massachusetts and Rhode Island down south, or
that and Florida, and I think I guess our biggest influx of people is from California.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of people bailing out of California. I saw on some publication where in San Francisco right now, there is 12 million square feet of vacant office space just in San Francisco.
Wow.
That's a bunch of Class A office space being vacant. So, and if you look at the one thing I like to try to figure out where people are moving to and from, you can look at U-Haul rentals. And that's pretty interesting. Right now, if you rent a 24-foot U-Haul truck in Los Angeles and drive it to Dallas, Texas, the rental's about $2,500. So if you rent the same truck in Dallas, Texas, and drive it back to Los Angeles, the rental's about $1,000. And the reason for the price differential is that U-Haul ends up with a bunch of trucks in Dallas because people are moving out of California. So to get them back to California, they have to pay a driver to drive them back empty, or they can rent them to somebody at a discount and let them drive it back, and they make a little dab of money on it. So I find that pretty interesting to find out where people are moving to and from.
It's a UHaul.com site we could go on.
Yeah, anybody can just go to UHaul.com and pick a destination, and yeah, it's kind of fun to do actually. It was pretty amazing the first time I did that, the staggering price deal. I mean, it's $2,500 to go one way, and if you turn around and go the other way, it's $1,000. So that's a pretty staggering price differential.
Let's see. What are the best resources that have helped you along the way in your career, like CRS classes, great books, or tools? Are you a fan of Pat Zabby's program?
What's that?
Keeping Matters Current is one.
Oh, Keeping Current Matters. Yeah, I love that. That's I forget the guy. It's not Pat Zabby, it's somebody else, but we use that all the time. That's a great deal. And I love to read, so I think about once a year I haul out Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is not actually real estate related, but there's some really good stuff in there, and I read that. And I was actually one of the beta testers when NAR rolled out the ePro program. So I've taken the ePro class three different iterations for it. The first guys they hired to do it kind of went south about 2/3 of the way through, and then they hired some other guys to pick up the slack and do the program, which they completed it and ran it for a number of years. So I did that. And I was actually an ePro instructor for them. So I'd travel around to boards around East Tennessee and Western North Carolina and talk to boards about, how to become an ePro and sign people up for that. So then this Lublin guy and his people are running it now for NAR. And so I've taken that too. So I guess I'm like a 3-time ePro.
Well, it's always evolving, so it's probably necessary to do that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to do. And there's a pretty big differential between the first class and then the second one and then the third one. So the third one is more slanted towards social media.
Very cool. And I noticed Ann does a lot of blogging and video. And I know that's a big SEO to get to your site as well. So
yeah, and we also we love to take pictures, and this is a pretty scenic area. That picture behind me is some of the waterfront on the south end of town. And we have houses here that are 300 years old in the historic district that people live in, and they sell for over $1 million. So it's a pretty popular area, and you really can't walk around a corner in Portsmouth without running into some sort of history. For instance, just kind of a quick little funny story. Where our office is in downtown Portsmouth, there's a big plaque on the sidewalk there that tells how Paul Revere rode to that location in 1774 to warn the Patriots that the British were coming to reinforce a fort out on Newcastle Island. And because of that, the Patriots stormed the fort before the reinforcements got there and stole all the gunpowder and shot they had stored there and left the guards tied up. So when the British ship sailed into the harbor, all they got to do was untie their guys and look at the empty stores. And the legend has it some of that shot and powder was used in the Battle of Bunker Hill.
very
Ton of history here. We live right around the corner from the Wentworth Coolidge Mansion, and a guy named Benning Wentworth was the colonial governor of New Hampshire before the American Revolution. So we live about a quarter of a mile from his former home, which is now open to the public as a state park.
That's amazing.
A lot of cool stuff here.
And we were talking before we went live too about Airbnb. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Well, Airbnb, Portsmouth is a very popular weekend destination from Boston. So there's a ton of people from Massachusetts come up on the weekend. We have a ton of restaurants here. Portsmouth, the population is 22,000. And I believe we have about 30,000 restaurant seats. So we have a lot of restaurants, and the town's like a beehive on the weekends. And a lot of people got the idea, well, we can do Airbnb and rent our, house out to whatever. So it got to be kind of an issue because people would come up from or down or wherever, come from wherever and rent a house, and they'd have like a wedding rehearsal dinner, a party, whatever there. And, in a nice residential neighborhood, you'd have 30 or 40 cars on the street and loud music playing and beer cans flying over the fence. And it just got to be an issue. So the city, in some areas, in some parts of town now, you can't do that. It's against the zoning. And we had one famous court case where this couple bought the house next door specifically to become an Airbnb for them. And because it was in the most restrictive residential neighborhood, the city sent them a cease and desist order. I happen to be on the zoning board of adjustment. So if you need a variance, our board's where you come to get that. So they applied for a variance from us and we turned them down. And then then their lawyer then sued the city and took the case to the state Supreme Court where they lost. So they now have a house next door that they can rent, longer term, and which is fine, but you just can't turn it into a party house and annoy all your neighbors.
No, we were talking that's what I just learned recently with someone that wanted to invest in Newport. There's certain areas that are zoned for like hotel almost use, which I guess they're saying Airbnb related to. And so very important to know to use Jim if you're going to send up a referral for someone that wants to make an investment property for the use of Airbnb.
Sure, and we know where you can do that as well as where you can't do that, so we can steer them in the right direction.
Awesome. So I have two more questions.
Okay.
One is maybe hard, but maybe you can think of them really quick. Who are the 3 people who have been the most influential to you, your teachers or mentors in life?
That's actually pretty easy. My mother probably was the best mentor I've ever had. She was the original single mom when I was a kid. Her and my father were divorced when I was I think I was about 5. And so she worked to support us, and she worked as a waitress in a restaurant for a number of years. And after that, she sold Avon in the afternoon. So I used to ride. I remember riding with her in the car, and she'd go into somebody's house to talk to them about Avon, and I'd sit in the car and do my homework. So she was a big influence. And then my first broker was a big influence, probably in a way he didn't realize. When I first got my license, I went to work for this firm in Knoxville. I pretty quickly realized the broker didn't know a whole lot about real estate. So I wanted to learn how to do it and make some money doing it. So I went down to the public library and checked out a bunch of books about it and spent a couple of weeks reading them. And I learned about, door knocking and cold calling and how to get listings and that sort of thing. So he was a good influence. He just didn't know it. And then I used to hike and backpack and camp a lot in East Tennessee. And some of my real estate, or my fellow realtors and I'd go up into the Smoky Mountains and, hang out in the backcountry for about 3 or 4 days. And there's a lot of talk going on around the campfire. So that since we were most all realtors, the subject was pretty much always real estate. So I learned about real estate talking to them. There's some people who've been in business much longer than I at that time. So it was a great learning experience. Plus it was kind of cool to be out in the woods and relax a little bit and, leave the cell phones and everything back at the trailhead.
Something to be said for that, for sure.
Yep.
3 great people. Thank you for sharing that. So if you could step into my shoes right now, or my chair, what would you have asked yourself that I didn't ask you today that you want to share?
Oh, let's see. Step in my shoes. I guess how long do you, again, I've been selling real estate for 40 years, and I guess I'd be wondering, if I were you, how long do you plan to continue? So I'm going to continue as long as I'm able and as long as it's fun. It's really kind of, I wish I'd been into this job right out of high school, because it's fun. I enjoy doing it still. And, I could have done it much longer. I'd have been a realtor emeritus a long time ago.
Right. So I see our national president Richard's on the call, and maybe he'll unmute, but he told me a little story too. He said, because he volunteered to be on any committees that we may need to look for some help for this year. And so I wanted to get his opinion on anybody off the list. He goes, oh my gosh, Jim Lee's the best. And I got to tell you a little story. He goes, I called up Jim because I needed someone up in New Hampshire and it wasn't really his area. And he said, Richard, I'll call you back in a couple minutes. And so he hung up the phone, and it wasn't even your area, but you got him somebody. So Richard, if you want to chime in, he said, he's your guy because he's always got a guy. So I thought that was a really good referral story. So Richard might be.
Hey, how are you, Cheryl and Jim?
Hey, Richard.
Good to see you, Jim. Great to hear you. I loved your stories. You're the only person I know in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, with a Southern accent. So I love hearing you. One of your questions, though, I loved hearing about the Airbnb, because we're having that issue down here on Cape Cod. And in the town of Barnstable, they're looking at creating a regulation relative to that here. And our Board of Realtors is very involved. When that came in up in Portsmouth, did your local Board of Realtors or the State Board of Realtors get involved there?
They did. Actually, the State Realtor Association was in support of it. So we were kind of at odds on that. And that was kind of I had to kind of walk a fine line between that, because I'm also on the local zoning board too. So, it's kind of hard to wear 2 hats about the same subject when both your organizations have opposite views of it.
It's always difficult. I too, I'm chairman of the Board of Assessors in my community. We have issues come up, and the bottom line is just to do the right thing. And sure. I know we live in a resort area, similar to what you're doing up there. Sure. And for folks who live here year round versus folks who are looking to buy investment properties, it's a bigger issue continuing to raise its head. And I think you're going to see more and more communities dealing with situations. And I'm a realtor. I believe in private property rights.
Sure.
but I'm also a member of a community and I have to be a responsible member of my community. So I think it's very, very difficult.
Well, we had one of the local residents take the town all the way to the state Supreme Court to try to do an Airbnb in a very restrictive residential neighborhood, and they were not successful in their lawsuit. So, you can stop.
Jim,
stop
one
that.
other thing I want to comment on, I just think it's great that you used to camp out with other realtors. Yeah, you were doing masterminds before they were cool.
Yeah, us and the Bears.
Well, Jim, I just want to thank you very, very much. If anybody has any questions, could you just put them in the chat? And Christine, can you just bring them to our attention, or Nora? And while we're waiting to see if there's any special questions, can you just give us your website and your email is so simple, so no one will forget it.
Yeah, it's just jim@jimlee.com. Our website has a kind of a long name. It's New Hampshire Maine Real Estate.com, but jimlee.com also links to it. So if you can't remember all that, just remember JIMLEE.com, and that'll get you there just the same. And you can take a look at our virtual home selling system and our virtual home buying system, which has been done pretty well for us.
That's awesome. And if anybody on the line has any questions, or in the future on our YouTube channel, you wouldn't mind if they gave you a call, would you?
Oh, not at all.
All right. Well, that would be great.
Cheryl, Lisa has a question. What's
Yes,
the one?
I'm just wondering, we're all sort of, I think everyone's getting their heads around, oh, that's right, I should be doing some business planning for 2021, even though 2020 is sort of still swirling all around us. So just wondering, is there anything that you've, been sort of getting excited about, looking forward to manifesting in 2021?
Yeah.
Besides being a volunteer on New England Region leadership team. Thank you.
In 2021, I'm going to change the one, not change, but add to our repertoire of services, investment real estate, the single family residence as an investment. I think there's a lot of people that are looking for different investment vehicles now, other than the stock market or mutual funds, where you can, actually buy some single family houses and realize the appreciation and tax benefits of them. So we're going to add that to our toolbox in 2021.
Excellent. Thank
probably
you.
do some some seminars for, like investing 101 or something like that. Maybe get a CPA and a tax person to step in with us and do that. So that's our 2021 plan.
Great
And
idea.
Cheryl, Richard wanted to make an announcement for celebration. And also in the link above, I had put in, we have our class tomorrow Tuesday and Wednesday, 10 to 2 with Kim Cameron. And on the very top of the chat is the direct link that you can sign up for the course. But Richard, take it away. I unmuted you.
Thanks so much, Nora. Some may have seen my video from Friday night. Things happened fast and furious last week about Celebration 2021. And there were some questions this weekend about why we couldn't keep it in Nashville. Right now, there's so much unknown. NAR has stopped basically anything from happening for the first quarter of next year. And what people don't understand, when we plan a celebration, something that large, our contracts are put in place 3 to 5 years in advance. And if for whatever reason we had tried to keep it in Nashville and things got shut down, the cost to RRC would be between $150,000 and $200,000 as a cancellation fee. So when we tried to change things, we wanted to make sure things were safe for next year. So doing it virtually February 11th, a one day, and then moving it out to Tahoe, we had to scramble to get some contracts signed there. One of the issues we have when we're making these decisions nationally is that hotel chains have laid off so many people. A lot of their sales staff have been laid off. We've been working on this for a month and a half to try to work something out for next year. So we are doing a celebration in 2 phases. February 11th is a one-day virtual program. And then in person, the 17th to 19th of August, we're going to call that Reconnect because we haven't been able to connect too much this year. So we're looking to reconnect with all of our CRS and RRC peeps in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. So thanks, Nora. Thank you, Cheryl and Lisa. Jim, rock and roll. You guys are wonderful. Love to hear you. And look forward to seeing everyone soon.
Okay. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you all. It's 12:30. We're ending right on the dot.
All right.
Thank you so much. And look for the recording on CRS page and group page.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thanks, Jim.